What is going on, everybody? Your boy Izzy, back at it with another video. Today, we are going to talk about one of the 7 deadly sins. A sin that is, to be honest, not talked about enough, at least in the area that we're going to discuss. Now, this particular sin, arguably, is on the same level as lust and pride when we look at today's landscape and when we look at today's social media obsession, this obsession with money, this obsession with being famous, this obsession with just being validated. And I did a recent video on that. I don't know if you guys saw it, but there is this constant need of validation from everyone else instead of making sure that we are internally fulfilled. The 7 deadly sin that we're going to discuss is greed. Why did I choose greed in particular? Now, me, myself, I don't consider myself a greedy person. I don't really think that I've inherently struggled with this, but I've had moments where I was greedy, without a doubt. I've had moments where I wanted more likes. I've had moments where I wanted more money. I've had moments where I wanted things that I didn't even necessarily work hard for or earn. You know what I mean? Like I've had moments where I've asked God for something and I had to look back and say, wait a minute, I didn't even deserve that. Why am I asking for that? A lot of that could be rooted in ungratefulness. A lot of that could be rooted in just being dissatisfied with everything that you're already blessed with. You know, you're not appreciative of what you already have, right? So greed is very interesting because greed is not just one particular thing. Greed can be in anything. A greed for success, a greed for money, a greed for more food, a greed for attention. Greed could literally come in all shapes and sizes. All shapes and sizes. So when we look at today's world, what are the top 3 things that people are most greedy about? Well, number 1, in my personal opinion, I would have to say food is up there. Now, this is no in particular order. I'm not saying this is like the most common one. I would have to say pleasure, food, all that is in the same category, right? People are unhealthy more than ever, especially in the United States, guys. Anybody that's watching this overseas, I'm from Florida, I'm from the United States. We're not known for being the most healthiest people on the planet. Let's just put it that way. The FDA approves of stuff that you go to other countries, they ban certain chemicals. But that's a topic for another day. We live in a very pleasure-first society, health second. Or should I say pleasure over everything, and then health is at the bottom of the list. We don't follow the food pyramid, and then even if we do follow the food pyramid, the things that we have in our food pyramid technically aren't even really good for us, right? We're supposed to live in a world that we prioritize greens and proteins and clean eating over pleasure. Now, you know, you're probably wondering, what does this have to do with the Bible? What does this have to do with greed, the 7 deadly sin? Let's go to Luke chapter 11, verse 39. My bad for the misspeaking on that. Chapter 11, verse 39. Then the Lord said to him, "Now you Pharisees make the outside of the cup and dish clean, but your inward part is full of greed and wickedness." How does this tie into what we're discussing earlier? Now, obviously, the Pharisees, they probably didn't struggle with eating a lot of food. I'm not going to say that. I don't know. I wasn't there at that time. But their version of greed was more associated with pleasing people and pleasing themselves, really, to be quite honest with you, because they made their appearance to be clean. They made their appearance to be this super high, what's the proper word? Let me see. High status. That's the proper word. They appeared themselves to be high status and like they're above everyone else, right? They had this outward appearance as if they just can't be touched. They're in a different stratosphere, right? They're on a different mountain of status and fame, and they're the important ones as far as the hierarchy. But their inward is full of greed and wickedness. What exactly are the Pharisees greedy about? Well, number one, we just said it earlier. It's attention. There's another verse in Matthew that I was reading the other day. I don't remember it from the top of my head, but I know it's in the early Matthew. Jesus discusses how Pharisees do things for attention. He even gave a couple examples in the Sermon on the Mount. He says that when they fast, they disfigure their faces because they want the reward from men. They want to be seen by men. They want people to know, oh, look at me, I'm fasting. Agreed for attention. Another example Christ gave was that they do these fancy prayers out in the streets to be seen so that way they could get the approval of people. Again, getting their reward in front of everyone else in public, but not getting their reward from God. Again, agreed for attention and validation. They're doing this for the wrong reasons, which is why Jesus sees right through them. God could care less how fancy you dress. He could care less what your job is. He can care less what you have on the outside, your status. When you look at the heart of a person, and when we look at what Jesus is saying, now the Pharisees make the outside of their cup and dish clean. They look good on the outside, but your inward part is full of greed and wickedness. Let's go on to another great example of this, because again, greed comes in all shapes and sizes. We talked about food first, about how the United States, that's just one example. I'm pretty sure there's other countries that are extremely greedy too. We live in a very greedy society in general. So it's not just the United States. I'm not nitpicking. And then we use the Pharisees. Their greed for attention, their greed for validation from others. And they don't really necessarily want to please the Father. They want to really just get validation and look good amongst people. Let's look at another great verse when we talk about greed. Another good one would be Luke chapter 12 at verse 15. Then he said to them, watch out, be on your guard against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist in an abundance of possessions. Meaning, Jesus warns that a person's worth and a purpose in life are not defined by how much they own. Greed blinds us from what truly matters, eternal values and dependence of God. What does this all mean? If you simply think that your whole purpose of being on this planet is to have a beautiful car and a nice house, and that in itself is what gives you value as a human being, you will be the most depressed person on the planet. Now, let me make this very, very clear in this video. This is not me demonizing wanting nice things or demonizing you buying a new car if you can afford it, or getting a nice house if you can afford it. Notice I said if you can afford it, because a lot of people try to go broke to prove a point to other people that they're finally living that lavish life. No, you don't need to do that. If you need to make ends meet, man, just do what you can in the meantime and trust in God. But this is not me demonizing people who want nice things. I want to make this very, very clear. That's not what greed is about. Greed is when nothing is ever enough. That's what Jesus is saying in this verse. You're tying your worth to things that don't even last forever. You're tying your worth to things that are possessions that cannot see nor hear nor walk. That's why he says, watch out, be on your guard against all kinds of greed. Like I said earlier in this video, there's not just one kind of greed. I gave a couple examples of the food and Pharisees wanting validation. And now we're at another version of greed where a person feels like their worth is based on the possessions that they own. My house doesn't make me a valuable person. I guarantee you right now, there's a homeless person out there that's 10 times more holier than me. And they're probably sleeping in a cardboard box. You get what I'm saying? So it's not about what possessions you own or what kind of watch you're wearing or what kind of job status that you have that makes you this amazing, holy person. No. Don't get it twisted, man. Greed comes in all shapes and sizes, and as believers, we have to be extremely careful that we're not praying for something that God has already blessed us with. What about the things that God has already given us? Are we thanking Him for health and strength, food on the table, clothes on our backs, shoes on our feet, and a roof over our head? Or are we in this constant state of, Lord, I need this, I need that, I need this, I need that, I need this? Don't be greedy. And I'll end off with this. This is 1 Timothy chapter 6 at verse 10. It says, for the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. It is through this craving that some have wandered away from the faith and pierced themselves with many pangs. Meaning, greed, especially the love for money, leads to spiritual ruin. It causes people to drift away from their faith and experience deeper inner pain. I'm going to end off with saying this. There's a reason why Jesus said it is hard for a rich man to get into heaven, and it's better for a camel to go to the eye of a needle. And if I completely butchered that statement, please correct me in the comments, because it's been a while since I read that exact verse. But just to paraphrase, he's basically saying that it's hard for rich men to get into heaven. Why? Because the moment they become rich, he or she, the moment they become rich, the moment they get certain possessions, the moment they get that job status, the moment they get whatever they so desired, they feel like they don't need God. And that greed becomes insatiable, and they're not fulfilled. They thought that that position that they wanted so badly, that car that they wanted so badly, would finally just quench the thirst that is within them, but it didn't. Do not be greedy. Wherever you're located, whatever house you have, apartment, townhouse, studio, I don't care. Thank God that you're living with health and strength. I'm a college student. I'm trying to be a successful entrepreneur. Is it frustrating? Yeah, because I see a lot of young people doing well for themselves, but I can't compare my life to other people. God has their journey for them, and he has his journey for me. I have to be content and satisfied and fulfilled with what God has already given me. That doesn't mean I'm going to stop working hard. That doesn't mean that I'm going to just cope and say, you know what, Lord, I'm going to give up on life. No, I have to trust him. I can't let my greed and my flesh intervene. Remember, everyone deep down wants to do better for themselves. Hopefully. I mean, nowadays people are a little bit weird, but the point is, there's nothing wrong with wanting to do better for yourself, and there's nothing wrong with wanting nice things. But when that flesh intervenes and it grows into something more, that's when it becomes greed. Watch out. Be careful. Make sure you're reading your word daily. Make sure you're sacrificing your flesh daily. Crucifying your flesh daily. And praying and talking to God that the greed inside of you that you do struggle with, whoever's listening to this, if you do struggle with greed, please listen to me when I say this. Pray and ask God to kill that greed in you and to help you be more satisfied, to help you be more appreciative and grateful for what you already have. You guys have a great day. God bless.